My kids lost their lunch on that roller coaster you built.
Oh, I thought they'd like the 17 loop-de-loop.
Introducing RollerCoaster Tycoon. Build the amusement park of your dreams with rides and coasters that'll blow your mind.
There's plenty to eat in your park, but where are your bathrooms?
Gee, I knew I forgot something. Place bathrooms and concession stands to keep your customers happy.
I doubled the bathrooms, built some incredible new roller coaster rides, and lowered ticket prices. Tourists.
Get on RollerCoaster Tycoon, now for PC CD-ROM.
RollerCoaster Tycoon is undoubtedly one of the greatest PC gaming franchises of all time, selling tens of millions of copies and planting the seeds of gaming into countless childhoods around the world over many decades. The game has also been one of the most influential Tycoon franchises of all time, has helped single-handedly create a subgenre of games, and has also introduced the ideas of managing a large-scale theme park and balancing happiness with profit into many of our lives. If you're like me, you've grown up playing RollerCoaster Tycoon. For me, it started in kindergarten at a Secret Santa where a copy of the game was available for $2. Even at the time in 2005, that was an absolute steal for a classic game like this. Today, the deluxe edition of the game with the downloadable content retails for $5.99 on Steam, and likely should have been priced a little higher back then when the game was only a few years old. The game was released in 1999, and this was the beginning of an era. All of the gameplay that you'll see in this video is from RollerCoaster Tycoon 1, which is personally my favorite game in the series. It's probably the most classic one of any of the games, and it's also probably the best when it comes to gameplay, while managing your finances, staff, operating costs, and the happiness of your guests. You're also tasked with objectives in the maps that require you to get creative. One thing that can be appreciated about this game is how much content that there really is. Dozens of scenarios, even more if you get the deluxe edition with the expansions. There is so much that you can actually do in this game. Depending on your skill level, a map may take anywhere from an hour to several days of playtime to actually complete the objectives, which will then allow you to unlock the next map in order. You start with a few basic maps to complete, but they get more difficult the more you progress through the game. Eventually, you'll get the hang of things, and this is when you can really start to appreciate the gameplay. The building mechanics are absolutely amazing, especially for an older game. This is a strength that the franchise has always held, but was already in strong display in the first title of the franchise. Chris Sawyer completely coded this game over a span of 2 years, writing the game in x86 and C programming languages. The art was done by Simon Foster, who created the models with a 3D program and another rendering program. Anyways, the gameplay is absolutely perfect. The scenarios aren't so hard that they're impossible, but they're not so easy that they do not provide you a challenge. This game became a benchmark of what to build off of after the success that it faced, and eventually was ported to the original Xbox, where it was subject to much more negative reception than the PC version. At this time, the game was still being published by Hasbro Interactive, but that would soon change in years to come. After the original RollerCoaster Tycoon game generated so much revenue and positive reception from the consumers, a sequel was nearly guaranteed. Only a few short years later, this is when we enter the RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 era. RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 was finally released in 2002 and built off of the success of the previous title. Unlike the first title, RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 allowed users to create custom scenarios, custom roller coasters to be saved and then implemented into other parks, allowed for things to be built above and below ground that didn't have tracks at the user's discretion, and also allowed for more customizable buildings by introducing a better system overall for building while taking the best parts from the first title system. One thing that the game was criticized for, however, was the lack of a sandbox mode. The first game didn't have this either, and truly it's sort of a disappointment that neither of them did, because it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to implement something like this into the game. At the time, other games had sandbox modes, so it's not to say like it was past the technology of the time or anything. The closest thing that RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 had was the Mega Park, which is actually what you're seeing right now, and RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 allowed custom scenarios. Sandbox wouldn't come until a later era, but even with these issues that could have been easily fixed, RollerCoaster Tycoon went on to receive generally good reviews and sold even better. During this time, the franchise had began to sell millions of copies, and it was becoming apparent that Chris Sawyer had created a new gaming juggernaut. The games, even today, still rank high on the best-selling PC games of all time, and this wasn't even the end of it all. The next era absolutely changed everything that fans had come to know and love with RollerCoaster Tycoon. The RCT3, or the RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 era, changed the way that we would play the game forever. Only 2 years off of another massive success in RCT2, the franchise would return. However, there were some major changes made that would completely alter how the franchise would resonate with its fans. The most notable change was that RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 was finally a 3D game. The game had decent graphics, featured pretty good gameplay, and finally, it had a sandbox mode. Another major addition that fans loved was the addition of the Coaster Cam, which was a first or third person mode that allowed you to ride the rides that you built in your parks. The first 2 games featured this window mode thing where you could kind of follow the trains as they went through their tracks and you could see, pretty much the entire ride. But it wasn't really that immersive, and the replacement that it faced with the Coaster Cam was definitely an upgrade. It also did not allow the player to kill peeps in ride accidents or by intentional drownings and path deletions, which for some reason actually became sort of a meme within the community and is one of the, most popular things when you see RollerCoaster Tycoon. I mean, if we're all being honest, if we played RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 especially, you were definitely killing people in your park. The game took the winning formula that they had created over the better part of 10 or so years of work, and then threw in a few new ingredients, and what they created would end up being the best-selling RollerCoaster Tycoon game of all time. However, some of the more important changes came from behind the scenes. For the first time, Chris Sawyer did not program the game. It was actually programmed by Frontier Developments, who had previously ported RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 to the original Xbox. Even though many fans consider this to be the best RollerCoaster Tycoon game of all time, it's more apparent to fans of the older games like myself that it lacks the same gravity that the older titles had. Sure, it's fun and it's a great game. It just doesn't have the magic that previous titles had. Honestly, I think it's because of Chris Sawyer. The guy just did it best if you ask people like me. Regardless, this is generally considered to be the golden age of RollerCoaster Tycoon, as it reached the height in popularity, sales, attention, and overall good reception. Unfortunately, unlike previous attempts, the next game in the series was unable to build off of the success of a previous title and add more that would make it stand out. This era, while long and prosperous for the franchise, hit a very hard landing when RollerCoaster Tycoon World was announced and ended the era with a sad and pitiful betrayal of the winning formula. It's upon us right now. The worst title in the RollerCoaster Tycoon franchise is also the lowest rated and well-received title altogether, like it should be. RollerCoaster Tycoon World seems less like an attempt to build off of the glory of the franchise and more of an attempt to grab cash from nostalgic fans. The game was not developed by either Chris Sawyer or Frontier. This time it was created by Navizio Productions. Say what you want about the changes, Frontier at least knew what they were doing. Navizio has never had an idea at all. The game is unable to run. Even on the best machines today, it still will not run at a stable frame rate for most people. The bugs and glitches are littered throughout the game and will not be fixed, and the game will crash if you blink too hard. The gameplay moved away from the beloved tiled-based building mechanics that fans loved for the spline system, which allows for a little bit more of a realistic and custom approach, but the game even manages to do that wrong. The game has gotten negative reception across the board from old and new fans and from game critics alike. The game has been considered the dark ages of the franchise by the community since release, and this is even more apparent when you see RollerCoaster Tycoon Mobile, which was obviously a cash grab for nostalgic fans, which obviously came out a little bit earlier than RollerCoaster Tycoon World, but we're going to go ahead and throw it into this era too. It's almost like a transitional period, if you will. It's apparent that they know that they've done something wrong, as RollerCoaster Tycoon Classic basically remasters the first and second editions of the game into one game and puts it on mobile devices. I think it's also on PC too. But since the game has been considered the dark ages of the franchise by the community since release, it's likely going to last until we have a new game announced, which who knows when that'll be. It just seems like we're going to be stuck with it for a little while longer. This era, it'll be hard to tell when it ends for now, but we'll hopefully know when we see a new trailer. Hopefully they hire some more competent developers who understand what made the franchise so successful to begin with, because that would be an absolute improvement. The guys over at Frontier went ahead and made their own roller coaster game under its own name, and that game is dominating the market right now. This little title that you may or may not have heard of that is called Planet Coaster, which is currently bringing back those RCT3 vibes to fans of the genre. There's also games like Parkitect, which while small and indie, it's quite literally bringing back the vibes from the older RollerCoaster Tycoon games. The neat art and aesthetic of it, the isometric view, it just really throws you back a little bit. The market is no longer dominated by RollerCoaster Tycoon like it was once before. Theme park simulation games are now ran by people inspired by the older titles of the franchise, or in the case of Planet Coaster, the guys who made one of those titles. RollerCoaster Tycoon had an amazing rise over the years, and right now, it's having a very hard and ugly fall. From the top of the top to not even dominating the market. There you have it, the rise and fall of RollerCoaster Tycoon. Unfortunately, we're in a dark place for the community right now, and hopefully this will be lifted soon with a better title. Until then, I'll continue to play the classics. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Tell me what you think below and follow me on Twitter below as well. Join the Discord to talk to me and my other fans. And until my next video, this is Optimus, signing out.